Finally, I'm here in the quietest room in the world. This is the long wave chamber, which could be considered an anechoic chamber. It was so incredibly quiet that I could literally hear my own heartbeat. So what exactly do they do in this particular room? Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Era. At Apple's WWDC 25, Apple unveiled a variety of new sessions. Among Korean content creators, IT Sub was the very first to visit this specific location, which is known as Apple's Audio Lab. As you can plainly see, this facility handles everything related to audio, from Airpods to iPhones and even the Vision Pro. Simply put, any Apple product equipped with a speaker and microphone passes through this facility. That would naturally include MacBooks as well. I had the chance to visit this place with Bangusuk Review Room and Gajon Jubu. We'll explore how Apple's audio technology is poised for further evolution, including some previously undisclosed information, and also delve into the recent update. Let's examine all of it. When I was first introduced to it, they presented it as the most cutting-edge audio lab facility in the entire world. I truly felt Apple's incredibly meticulous, almost obsessive attention to detail as we often describe it. There's no minor aspect of this product that could be overlooked, and among these, the sound element is particularly revolutionary. This time, regarding the Airpods, during WWDC 25, Apple announced that studio-grade audio recording and remote camera control functionalities have been activated. Originally, due to Bluetooth's inherent limitations, like the codec's potential for latency and various issues such as data capacity constraints, real-time studio-grade audio recording or remote camera control proved quite challenging. However, this recent update has fortunately made these capabilities now possible. For further details, I recommend you visit the Bangusuk Review Room channel. However, typically when recording video and audio with devices like Airpods, the sound quality has often been quite poor. But if they're calling this studio grade, it implies that the Airpods Pro 2nd generation are now capable of recording 16-bit 48 kHz lossless audio. So whether you're just out and about, perhaps commuting or even dancing while creating content like shorts or reels, you can simply plug these in and get it done. So, by integrating an enhanced microphone module and machine learning-driven sound separation technology, they've achieved a clearer, fuller sound. All these innovations were developed directly within this very audio lab. So it'll be helpful for calls too, as it will better reduce ambient noise and isolate your voice. Same goes for gaming, I'd imagine. Furthermore, since they now also serve as hearing aids, there are considerable expectations. Actually, filming in relation to the audio lab was extremely restricted. Because this is a research lab, we were quite limited in what we could film. However, this is the very first area you encounter upon entering the audio lab. And where exactly is this, you ask? I was feeling good, so I asked Gajon Jubu to take a picture of me, and that's how I got this shot. These are the speakers that Steve Jobs used, and they're on display in the lab. These two right here. They're set up just like that. Apple's obsession with sound began 35 years ago with Steve Jobs. They said this was specifically placed here as a symbolic reminder of the deep philosophy that our sense of sound and the overall audio experience are incredibly crucial to how we perceive and interact with a device. If you observe closely, this detailed information about Steve Jobs, found on the sign located behind my legs, yes, if you look back there, you'll notice a sign. I specifically captured an enlarged photograph of it. Upon reviewing it, you'll see that Steve Jobs had a long-standing interest in practices such as meditation, and seemingly devoted considerable attention to the sound quality of speakers. He appears to have profoundly contemplated the overall user experience. So I was able to experience all 4 of the rooms available in this audio lab. The very first room you encounter is the acoustic hearing test booth. You can essentially view it as a space designed for the precise and flawless measurement of sound. It's a chamber completely separated from all outside noise and external vibrations, resembling a small room fully enclosed by soundproof walls. Yet they configured it quite beautifully. So why exactly is this needed? Well, from a user experience standpoint, for example, if we're holding an iPhone or an iPad, they mentioned that this particular area was utilized to precisely capture only the pure sounds, whether those sounds emanated directly from the devices themselves or were meticulously recorded through a microphone. So they use precise medical-grade mannequins called HATS. Using this, they simulate hearing under conditions identical to a human ear. They say there are 4 permanent hearing test booths like this in this audio lab building alone. However, it's not just the researchers doing things. Thousands of actual users personally visit and participate in the research, where they precisely adjust and fine-tune the auditory experience. So instead of simply subjectively stating, oh, this sound is good, they're technologically measuring the precise frequency response of a sound. For those of you who studied electronics, you'll know that in system time, you determine the frequency response based on the time and frequency axes, right? So, just as we analyze what makes sound effectively resonate with our ears, or what characteristics, for instance, the bass should have, this is essentially a process to scientifically validate what is most appropriate and effective when we experience any device, whether it's an iPhone or Airpods. The second space, known as the Fantasia Lab, is a place that virtually recreates and simulates actual real-world environments. The goal here is to be able to reproduce every kind of noise that exists in the world. I suppose that's why it was called Fantasia. There are actually 50 speakers spherically positioned all around the entire space. So with just the press of a button, you can instantly hear a noisy restaurant or a shopping mall or the sounds of a bus, train, or even an airplane. All these ambient noises are perfectly reproduced by combining them. This is literally where they test the necessity of noise cancelling and other features. While you could actually go to those places to experience them, they reproduce the data here with these speakers, and then figure out how to effectively eliminate those sounds. This enables them to research how to make sound clearer in various situations. Things like Dolby 5.1, with their numerous channels, are ultimately about expressing a sense of spaciousness. And these days, even with Airpods, you can really experience that spatial audio. And with Vision Pro, bone conduction helps you pinpoint sounds in space, making them feel like they're coming from a specific direction. This technology appears to be a direct outcome of the Audio Lab's research. So this seems to be what birthed many of the adaptive audio features in AirPods. When we wear AirPods, we essentially get noise cancellation, but there are also functionalities like allowing ambient sound or even amplifying conversational voices, aren't there? Or features like spatial audio, which all work adaptively with your surroundings, and how noise cancellation temporarily pauses when it detects a human voice. All of these things are developed and researched right here in the Audio Lab. For those already familiar with the principle of noise cancellation, and I have indeed discussed it numerous times on this channel, you'd grasp it quickly by searching for Andelgonghak noise cancelling alone. Sound, expressed as a waveform, can be precisely cancelled when you superimpose the inverse of its frequency, leading to what's known as destructive interference. In essence, that unwanted noise simply vanishes. This is the technology used to cancel airplane noise, and it's also widely used for road noise in cars. And now, this principle is being used a lot in devices like Bluetooth earphones. Okay, the third space can be seen as a recording studio. It's labeled as the listening room. So if everything up to now was in the realm of science, you could say we've now crossed over into the realm of art. So the listening room is basically a space where audio experts listen to and directly tune the sound. As you can see, it's equipped with a top-tier audio system, including Dolby Atmos. They take measured data and gently adjust the sound, making it even better. Traditionally, experts would just use large diaphragm condenser microphones, you know? They use that kind of expensive equipment to create the best sound quality. But the problem is, it's not very portable, right? However, by incorporating the studio microphone capture feature into AirPods, it's now possible to achieve studio-grade processing. Based on all this gathered data, what we can actually experience is indeed the quality of a studio microphone. In the listening room, experts meticulously evaluate and adjust various parameters, carefully considering what will genuinely attain that professional studio level. In the past, this was only possible with professional mic equipment costing thousands, but now Apple claims you can do it with AirPods. What made this possible is the H2 processor inside the AirPods you see right now. That's because the power of this processor has also advanced significantly. From what I know, the processing capability of this H2 processor rivals that of the processors found in the early iPhone series, possessing immense computing power. Fundamentally, a very high-performance microphone is already integrated, and with this processor, it employs machine learning technology to separate my voice from ambient sounds in real time. Then, it refines the sound to be as rich as that of a professional microphone. It's like using an equalizer. If the equalizer has a certain curve, it learns the sound characteristics of a professional mic, and then tunes the AirPods to produce a similar sound. Therefore, this computational capability is truly significant. Real-time processing is vital for decreasing latency, but this computational power is also critical for rapidly processing and segregating large volumes of data, allowing the audio to emulate the sound of a professional microphone as closely as possible. Since Apple independently designed its own chips, there is a distinct possibility that the audio experience in these specific areas can be substantially enhanced. You can think of it that way. In fact, the Apple newsroom has detailed articles about these AirPods features. So you can use AirPods as a high-quality microphone even from a distance, which means you can now do things that weren't possible before. There's no need for a separate microphone. You can simply use your AirPods. As I mentioned previously, for more information you can find content in the Bangkok review room. Finally, this is the quietest room in the world. We've arrived at a unique space called the Long Wave Chamber, which is essentially an anechoic or soundproof room. It was incredibly quiet. You could quite literally hear your own heartbeat. Even if any sound did manage to reflect, it was entirely absorbed. It's a room within a room structure, so it's completely isolated from the outside, basically levitating. The entire room is floating on giant springs, so even the slightest vibrations from the ground don't get through. And you see all these spiky things sticking out everywhere? They're on the floor too. These things are wedge-shaped, so when sound hits them, it doesn't reflect back in the direction it came from. It just gets completely absorbed. In grad school, at the EM lab, Electromagnetics lab, we did many EM wave experiments. They had setups for wave absorption, and it was just like that. The sound-absorbing material was all wedge-shaped. So there's no sound reverberation at all. To experience this, check out the shorts from Daejeonjubu and Bangkok review room. I'll leave the links for you. I couldn't film it, but the sound is completely different when you're turned around versus when you're facing forward. Here, let me quickly show you the structure. Right now, Gayul from Bangkok review room is doing a voice test so you can hear for yourself how the sound changes. Daejeonjubu also carried out this test for us, and I've shown you that spot before, haven't I? You really ought to observe the parts where the sound is absorbed in this very place. So, what precisely is done in this room? If you glance behind you, there's a mannequin. They have it seated and rotating, and there's a row of speakers above it so they take measurements from every angle. This is done to gather data on how sound transforms when it reaches the area around the head and ears. So thousands of actual users have sat in that chair, rotating slightly at these tiny intervals, to measure how sound is heard from every angle. Then they store this data on how sound changes at specific points to be used later. This will be very useful when something like the HomePod comes out later, right? Because we need to hear it well no matter where we are. All of this is being developed through the Audio Lab. This is becoming even more crucial because every individual's ear shape is unique, their facial structures differ, and their bone composition also varies considerably. Therefore, the effectiveness of customization dictates whether a sound is beneficial for one person but potentially detrimental to another. Because this actually happens, Apple doesn't solely rely on mannequins. They listen to many real people, and by comprehensively combining data on ear shapes and sounds, they determine what works well. They essentially apply this experience through the use of data, processing, and AI. So, for iPhones, the True Depth camera scans the user's face and ears. It determines ear shape, and that data helps decide what sound that person should hear. This forms the basis for such decisions. Based on this biometric data, they can create an incredibly realistic spatial audio experience. Yep. When you hear the term Audio Lab, it might sound like a dull, uninteresting laboratory, but they are diligently putting in this much effort to craft a truly unique and enhanced auditory experience. And it was fascinating that so many people are evaluating things and accumulating data like this. I visited one more lab besides this one, and if the response to this video is good, I'll share my story from that lab as well. I'm also sharing various news, shorts, short clips, and fun videos on Andre Engineering's Instagram, Unreal Tech Error, so please check them out. This has been Error.